Welcome, everybody, to another exciting episode of HomeKit Insider. You've got me, as always, Andrew O'Hara. Joining me once again this week is Nanoleaf CEO, Gimmy Chu. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot for having me on the show.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's good to actually be able to catch up with you, not like just at CES or something, like something a little more in the middle of it all.
Yeah, well, our team was just at IFA. Unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't able to go there, but we did have a booth there. We showcased some of our new products. And of course, we did our Nanoleaf Live event last week. So we launched a whole bunch of things that we were itching to release for like a long time.
I
So it
know
was
we
pretty
have
good.
we have so many things that we're going to talk about, with Nanoleaf later. We've got the blocks stuff that came out. We've got the new Sense Plus Smart Switch that has finally been released after years of discussing it, and your whole like basically wireless standard you had to pull out of your hat to make it happen anyway. So there are things to get to, but I guess before we do that, we got to at least talk about the Apple event. What did you think of the iPhone 16 event?
I think it was centered around AI. Right. And I think that that's everyone knows that. I think overall hardware wise, it was a bit of a spec bump. Um, the camera thing was cool. I do like the little button thing. That's, it's really
Yeah.
convenient. And I think that like, I go to China a lot because of, our supply chain and stuff like that. And some of the things around like clicking a camera, like taking a picture of something and then having that go to AI and like do searches for you. I think a lot of things like Google Lens had that before, but I think in China they have this social media platform called like I think it's the Little Red Book. But they did stuff like that, and one of my colleagues, she basically she took a photo of some random person just walking along the mall, and she was able to select her T-shirt and see where to buy it in China. So I think like it's good that iOS is starting to have stuff like that. I think it'll be interesting. I think that AI is really going to change the way everyone lives, and it's kind of nuts. I think we're just at the cusp of like our lives really changing.
Yeah, it definitely, I mean, that was clearly their intent going into it. They basically made, the logo and all of the press material leading up to it was very like, new Siri animation focused and everything. So like that was definitely something they wanted to talk about, and it was going to be a big deal. They were going to bring all these AI features to the entry level phone, which I mean, it's hard for me at least to escape like out of like tech Twitter, and see what average people are doing and thinking, because I follow so many people in the tech space. But I've actually seen several, techie people say they're going like regular 16 this year because they don't need the pro features. I mean, the A18 is already a bin down version of the 18 Pro. You got the action button now, you got the camera control button on there now, you got macro support. There's what, your faster USB 3 speeds, the extra telephoto lens on there. There's not a ton of like titanium body, I guess, but 120 hertz refresh rate that people freak out about. I think for a lot of people, the 16 is going to be the killer phone this year.
I'm with you on that. To be honest, I was a little bit sad that they didn't have the iPhone Mini, the
Wow.
small one, the extra small one. I think they didn't sell a lot of numbers on that one, but I'm like, I already have so many big screens, right? Like I got a big monitor that I'm in front of like all day long. I have an iPad. Why do I need a big phone? And I made the mistake last time. I got the I can't remember what size this is exactly, but it's like the bigger iPhone Pro
Hmm.
that had all the features. It was one of the first iPhones that had a Thread radio. That was the main reason why I
Yeah.
bought it. And I'd rather have a mini. I want something tiny that fits in, any pocket and super lightweight. That I don't plan on watching videos on there endlessly. Oh, I try not to. Sometimes I still do, but that's a separate story.
Well, it seems like, okay, so first off, the new phones still do have the Thread radio in there, which is very nice. Are you going to upgrade this year? How often do you usually upgrade your phone?
Um, I typically try for every 2 to 3 years, more so 3 years, unless there's some compelling reason. I think for me, because last year's phone already supports the AI features,
Hmm.
so I
Yeah, you're
should
on the
be
Pro, so
okay. Yeah, if anything, it's typically my wife that gets things first, so I need to get her a phone. So any new phone just goes to her, and I get the I'll get it when she's bored of it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. What do you think? Are you going to upgrade to any new AirPods or a new Apple Watch this year?
Um, Sadly, no.
No, nothing.
I don't use noise canceling. It gives me a headache. So like I believe it's the AirPod 2. Like I don't like the foamy stuff. I like kind of their
Those are the
classic.
three. I have them literally
Is it
all sitting on
3?
my desk because these are
Okay,
the
you know this better
three
than me.
that you have. I've got the Pro in my ear with the silicone tip.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
three have the nothing's focusing if you're watching on video, but there's the three, which lack the foam earpieces, and then the twos are in my other hand that have like the vertical case,
Right, right,
and the
right. So you know them
twos,
better than I do.
the two have the very long stems. I actually never found that the threes fit my ears. Like of all the three models of in-ear AirPods, the Pros and the twos both fit well, but the threes were all they were like too bulbous and they
So
would
these are the
slip out.
threes, right?
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah, they never fit me great.
every ear is different. See, I don't
I
like
know.
the foamy tips, and I don't like active noise canceling. It gives me a headache. So it's just like I don't need any of those features. But I think there's some talk about having the home pods be part of the home experience and getting notifications about your home. The challenge for me is like I don't walk around with AirPods in my ear unless I'm talking to someone.
Hmm.
So I don't necessarily need some of those notifications. I think what's a lot more interesting is what they're doing with the Thread radio. And I guess I'm not sure what I'm allowed to talk about. But
Everything
I
you're
think that
telling,
like
I give you permission.
but I think that that's kind of interesting because in theory, Thread is supposed to be a mesh network where devices are just, all connected in a mesh. The border router, the reason why it's called a border router is because it's kind of a bridge between technologies, right? It bridges between Thread and Wi-Fi. So it allows devices that are on your Thread network to also be in the same network as your Wi-Fi network. And that's how in the past phones were able to connect to Thread light bulbs. They needed a border router to make it work. But when you add that Thread radio directly into the phone, in theory, you shouldn't need a border router. Now, what Apple's going to do, I don't know. And I don't think it's, publicly stated, and Apple's very top secret about that. But I think that having that in their phone is an indicator of the direction they want to go, which is making phones part of that Thread network. So I think that that could be a very interesting direction. And I know that they're constantly innovating, and they're very bullish on Thread. I think,
Okay,
sorry, go
this is
ahead.
all speculation, but I have a question for you and get what your opinion on this. Apple also has Thread radios in like the new iPad Pros, but they haven't enabled them. Why do you think they're putting in a Thread radio into your iPhone and enabling it and listing it as a feature, and yet they have theoretically the same functionality on the iPads, but they're not mentioning it, they're not turning it on, at least not yet. Why
But
do you think there's a difference?
they haven't really turned it on for the iPhone either.
Does it not talk directly to accessories as it is? Like
Today,
Thread
it's all
accessories?
through right now, Thread accessories require a Thread border router, which is either a HomePod or a Apple TV, and it
So
has to be a special
why
Apple TV, not
then
all
why
Apple TV.
build it in why build it into the phone and say it's a feature, but on the iPad you build the same thing in, but you don't even mention it.
So, I think whether they mentioned it or not is probably irrelevant. I think that if to be honest, I didn't know that they actually built it into the iPad. They probably wanna go through the same strategy, but where they're at today, it's all speculation what they're gonna do. Right. So I
Yeah.
I, I think ultimately it's a step in a good direction, I believe. And potentially like the thing about border routers, like a phone isn't necessarily the best thing to be a border router because it's not always connected to power. And I think iPad same idea. So if you remember years ago, the iPad was capable of being a home hub.
Yes.
They removed that, and it was a little chaotic, I would say. Well, it was the whole. I think it was like a whole change in like home architecture, if I remember correctly.
That happened
Right?
right at the same time. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and that was part of it. And I think now with them adding thread radios within both iPhones and iPads, it's good. It's exciting. I don't think they've really enabled it yet, but how they actually do so would probably be a really good thing for this smart home world and for Thread devices. I think we just gotta make sure that it whatever they release, it works really well. I think overall, like Thread is still a relatively new technology. If you think about it, Wi-Fi, it's been around what since the 1990s, maybe like 1999. Is that when that came out? I'm trying to think back when I first had a consumer Wi-Fi router. Um,
No, no.
but, but Thread, that was like in the last 5 years. We were the first Thread light bulb to come out of the market, and we did that with Apple. So there's still, and we have a lot of lessons learned in the last 5 years. Let's put it that way. But I think that it's finally getting to a point where it's actually stabilizing. But at the same time, what is market adoption like? If you had to guess the number of households that have a Thread border router within their homes, it's still very limited. Now, if all of a sudden Apple enables Thread within all of their new iPhones, then all of a sudden, we're seeing a pretty huge percentage jump in terms of households that support Thread. So I think that that could be a huge game changer.
It'll be nice having it almost like built in, and all of a sudden everyone has it without even kind of realizing that it had been building up in their home. So yeah,
I think if you ask anyone that doesn't work in smart home what Thread is, they'll be like, "What are you talking about?"
basically. But then again, they say
Yeah,
the same thing about Matter. But
that's true.
yeah. Okay, well, we still have a lot to talk about. Let's hit some of the actual news, and some of these are a little old that I had not even realized. So first off, well, real quick, iOS 18. iOS 18 is coming out today if you're listening to this on release day. So happy iOS 18 release day, everybody. Just to reiterate the features that Apple is adding for Apple Home: hands-free unlock with those ultra-wideband locks, the Aliro locks that are not out yet. There is pairing Matter accessories. You can pair these directly to your Apple Home without needing a Matter hub. Control them locally without needing a home hub at all. The Wi-Fi ones at least. So that is new here. Electricity monitoring. If you have one of those two utility companies out in California, I think you can add your utilities here to the Home app. And guest access. This is time-based access for locks, garage doors, and alarm systems for up to 29 guests. Do not try to add that 30th guest. It will not let you. But you can do all of that from the Home app, and Matter robotic vacuum cleaners can be added, included in scenes and automations and all of that. So that is what we're getting in iOS 18 for the Home, alongside things like, the Siri improvements that you can tangentially use with Home, and more clarification, like turn it off in this room. This other room, like all of those stuttering things that will all work thanks to Apple Intelligence. So at least a few HomeKit Apple Home changes with iOS 18. Well, the first other piece of news is Brilliant. Brilliant is back. Uh, did you see when they had kind of gone under? They were trying to find a buyer for a while, Jimmy, and then like everything was like listed out of stock on their website, and they were basically gone. And I thought it would be just a matter of time before their services were discontinued, but apparently they got purchased by two private equity or private investment groups. They brought everything back, and nothing ever went down. Everything was continuously available online, and now all of their products are available to purchase again. And they said their second gen product line is coming out later this year.
It's actually great to hear. I actually spoke to the CEO. I was friends with Aaron. He was, I guess, the founder and CEO of Brilliant. And he shared that with me, that one of the most important things was to make sure that he protects the customers that actually bought into his products. And so, like, I think they had to go through, unfortunately, a bankruptcy. And in that time, he wanted to make sure that his customers were still supported. And he did share with me that there was a new company that bought them out, and they reinstated things. I think a lot of the old employees were brought back to continue to run things. So kind of a it was kind of a good ending for that. I think that was
I think
it,
so. And, maybe this is just on paper, but Aaron is still with them, at least as an advisory role. And like, I love Aaron. Like he is always so great to talk to about stuff. And when they had talked about their second gen product that was specifically like way better, way faster, and cheaper, I was like all ears. And then everything kind of hit the fan at the worst time. So the fact that these could still be coming out, a lot of the original employees and Aaron are at least in some way involved with this. I'm very excited for what's going to be coming.
yeah. I think in the last couple of years post COVID, it's been tough for the home and the builder market, which was a big part of the market that they were going after. And I think just, with rising interest rates, not a lot of people were buying houses, not a lot of people were renovating houses. So, that whole market just kind of took a little bit of a tumble, unfortunately.
Especially with the higher price tag, I think on these products, it was very useful for those new builds. And when you were putting in multiple of them and using them as like the intercom systems and all of that, it made sense. And part of the reason why I'm so excited about these, like I keep holding on to them because of the Matter potential, being able to use these as that universal controller for Matter accessories in your home, because that was always the problem, right? Because Apple Home won't let you use a smart display from a third party to control, your Apple Home devices. But if all of your Apple Home stuff eventually is Matter enabled, and then you've got this Matter accessory, it should be able to control everything from fans to lights to humidifiers to basically anything. So this always had like such potential, and I feel like it just had ended too soon. So I'm pretty excited about this.
Yeah, it's good. It's great. It's great that their products are still up and running. They got the team back up and running. I think it's a good story.
Well, I feel like we're gonna have a roller coaster of news here today. So this is also good news, more good. But LifX, another company that was basically almost gone, which I know is obviously one of your competitors here, but they have two new bulbs that have come out. So they have a new B10 Polychrome candle bulb and the Polychrome T10 cool frosted glass tube. So two new products from them. I believe they're going through like Home Depot for a lot of their retail stuff, but two new versions of their product lights, and they've got like the multi-color lights there. So like the candle bulb always looks cool because you can have like several colors in there at once, like a yellow, orange, and a red to give a more realistic looking like flame effect going on if it's covered with something. But yeah, LifX is still putting out new products, which is always good to see.
Yeah, I was friends with the old LifX founders too. There's a group from Australia. I think overall the smart home, smart lighting industry is pretty small, so we end up being kind of competitors, but also friends. I think the LifX guys they were really great. They ended up, I think, getting bought out by Fight, if I
Mm-hmm.
remember correctly.
Yeah.
So I think Fight's been doing a lot of work with the LifX brand, and I know Alan Fight, the founder of Fight, is what I think he's the founder of Fight. It's got his name in there.
Just a big coincidence. It was completely happenstance.
Yeah, so I think they've been doing a really good job with that product line, and it's kind of cool. I saw one of the photos. I think it's like an elongated like
Yeah.
light bulb. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Definitely
I
cool.
love the different form factors. Like you guys do them. Hugh does a lot of different ones. LifX does a few of them, but it just like it's really good just to mix things up. Like nothing looks like a standard light bulb. Like you can get those, of course, you can get those 10 different ways. But I like there's like these really. I'm building like this big old coffee nook into our dining room right now, and I'm like having all this fun, like just trying to pick out like what kind of ridiculous lighting and bulbs and things to put in there to make it look really neat. We're not tied to just a standard looking, light bulb anymore. It's great.
It's true. The light bulb is a bit of a silly design. It was designed for incandescent lights, right? It was a glass bulb to house basically a little filament that you heated up with AC power, right? And every 30, every 90 days or whatever, it blows out and you switch it out. So you had to twist it off and twist it back in. But now you got LED light bulbs that last for like 30 years. It's
Yeah.
basically a lifetime in consumer tech. why do you need it to still screw in and screw out? It doesn't make any sense anymore. But we're still tied to that standard, and everyone's still making products to be screwed in and screwed out, fortunately.
I know we switch it up a little bit with like the track lighting, which is a lot easier. Like literally just like twist in pogo pins basically to make that connection, and we are seeing kind of more innovation in that space. But you have to have a spot where you have that, a track already installed, or be willing to install a track, and it gets a little more complicated. I know you guys have done a little bit different with like your ceiling lights that are very cool, like the skylights. So there's a few coming out here that are differing from that, aside from just your wall mounted ones that, are pretty common.
It's it's hard to keep coming up with new things, but at the same time, like, lighting is one of those things. You need different types of lighting in a space to make it look nice, right? So you can't just have a single, light fixture and all of a sudden you have great lighting in a room. No, you have to have like accent lighting, decorative lighting, functional lighting, and you gotta mix and match it all in order to make a space look nice. So it's lighting design is kind of complicated.
Well, moving out of lighting, I was a bit dramatic with my titling in our show notes, but I have level is done, and I'm hoping it's not that negative here, but Assa Abloy has acquired Level Lock, and Level Lock was definitely my favorite right now in the smart home space for smart locks, and this is where I say like some stuff was a little bit dated at this point, because Assa Abloy, I had not realized when they had made another big acquisition, they had to sell off Yale in August. Or maybe I covered it, but it was literally a year ago, like June of 2023 or something. And I had not remembered that Assa Abloy's, the parent company, had sold off Yale in August. And now, I guess to make up for the fact they sold August, they're just able to buy Level Lock, which seems weird. If they were forced to sell like August, that they were okay to buy a very similar competitor. I guess it's going to be smaller than Yale, but very similar in what they're doing. And what I'm nervous about, after Assa Abloy and kind of Yale had purchased August, I felt the quality really took a hit. I had talked about on the show like my struggle with like the cabinet locks that Yale had come out with, and like the app experience as they tried to merge everything together was terrible. And August has not really had any new products in years, despite them keeping the brand and the app still going. And I'm hoping that the same thing doesn't happen with Level, because Level had some really innovative tech, the invisible, deadbolt smart lock that could just hide in your door. They were, very fast with things like HomeKey, and supposedly they've got that Thread radio in there and Matter support that they're going to enable, and I'm excited for that too. And they haven't done it yet, and I'm a little nervous that Assa Abloy is gonna, like they say they're still gonna run it as its own business and everything within Assa Abloy, but we'll see what happens. But I'm nervous right now after what happened with August.
I personally have an August lock, and I was actually just searching online for the Level Lock because I was like, let me upgrade to the Level Lock. But I think now, hearing the news, I might hold off for a little bit. But I would say that in the last few years, like post the August lock acquisition, August was one of the first HomeKit locks.
Yeah.
And since HomeKit, there was so much change with Matter and Thread and all this stuff. It's very difficult being on the bleeding edge, and I know that from experience. And being on the bleeding edge of Matter, being on the bleeding edge of Thread, it took a lot of heavy lifting to get it to the state that it's in today. And you could argue that there's still further that it needs to go, which is true, but it's going to be a lot less heavy lift. So there's a high probability that with this acquisition, Level will still be able to implement all of these things because it's such an easier time now to develop all of that, because Apple Home changed its architecture so many times, including with this new iOS release. I think it's in a much better state than it was in, let's say, 5 years ago. And so I think that, there's a high probability that they will be able to deliver on some of those promises. And at least that's the optimistic side of me speaking.
I mean, I think especially in the short term, like it's gonna be fine. It's more of like what happens after that. Like August, like I loved August. It's what I went with for years before switching to the level lock. And it was the one that I liked the most. It had the wireless keypad and it was very sleek, easy to install, retrofit. So it worked for apartments as well. There was a lot of stuff to love about it, but everything that's kind of happened since that acquisition has been fumbled. I never had good reliability with like the whatever that's called, the box on your porch, like the package holder. This safe, even little bit hit or miss, just like their software side has struggled to me, and I just don't want the same thing to happen to Level, in a few years, depending on what they end up doing with that technology and the brand.
Yeah. Do you recommend the level lock? Should I buy
still
one?
do. Absolutely. I love it. I really, really like it. It gives you a ton of options, unless you're looking for like the facial recognition or something like that. But you've got, the NFC, you've got HomeKey, you've got like HomeKey is what I use, and I think it works very, very seamlessly. The only thing that I've ever struggled with that I didn't like was that on the touch version of it, when sometimes just the way that our door, like it opens into the house and it's very tight, and I would end up hitting the deadbolt as I would walk out, like with my forearm. And when you would touch the exterior of the lock, it would lock it. So I would lock it, and then I'd close the door behind me and end up smashing the deadbolt into the door frame. So, I mean, but literally everyone who walks out of our house tries to push the door open. I have no idea why. There's just something psychologically about our entranceway that people try to push the door open, and it is tight. You have to kind of come at it from a side. So whatever it is, but I would always end up just brushing my arm against it, having the deadbolt open up, and then hitting into the door frame. But you can turn that feature off, which I did. But you can do that, and if you don't have such a specific entranceway, it should not be a problem at all. And there's other versions of it, but I do very much like it, and I still recommend it.
Cool. Okay. I got to try one out.
Awesome. Okay, last bit of news before we get into some questions and some Nanoleaf stuff. Ikea's their Dirigera hub, if that's that name. It has finally added Matter support after like 2 years. It has been in beta for people who wanted to test it out, but now it is available, fully released to everybody, which is going to be nice. Another big Matter implementation. IKEA has been releasing a lot of products in their smart home brand, so this will be nice to have another big Matter edition out there. Have you tried any of the IKEA stuff at all?
No. I tried their little rolly like dial a while ago. That's kind of cool. Like I think IKEA has the power to move a lot of products. But I'd be curious, like if they are creating a whole product line that's going to be Matter supported, why do they want to own the platform? Why not just let the tech giants run it? Why not just let Apple, Google, the iPhone owners, like, IKEA will still move product. Will they have the best Matter platform? I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't bet on it, but that's just me. They'll probably have users, but
I think it's going to be good just to have another major brand of smart accessories work with Matter. Like, it's at least a little bit more visibility into things supporting Matter, which has to be good because people still don't know what the heck it is. And
I don't think people need to, though, right? Because really, like, I feel like, very soon, especially with the new iOS coming out, like, what is the purpose of Matter? It's to create interoperability for platforms. And, well, what's the direction that platforms are going? They're going AI, right? And there's going to be AI, like, I think we're seeing it with iOS 18, where here's spaghetti on the wall with different types of AI user experiences, right? Like, just like all this UX. What's going to actually pan out? I think Apple and Google and Amazon, the people that are really invested in like Microsoft, Facebook, these guys, they're going to try and figure out how to actually do it in a useful way. And Matter will just be something that AI uses to connect with devices. That's
I mean, I
my
agree, but I think it comes down to a simpler thing of when you send someone to the store to buy a product, how do they know if it works for their platform? And right now, that's just been massively confusing because they can't even buy a Matter product and know that it's going to work with Apple Home or
they'll click
Amazon.
their little camera button and take a
They'll
photo
use
and
the
be like,
visual
which
lookup.
one should I
Yeah.
buy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people won't even make their own decisions anymore. It's just AI making decisions for them.
They should just watch podcast episodes and they'll tell them exactly what to buy
Exactly.
through affiliate links in the show notes. That'll be the way of the future. That's what it is. Okay, well, let's talk about some Nanoleaf stuff. Before we do, let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor for this episode. It's Zocdoc, which is incredibly important as we're going into the winter season where inevitably everyone is going to get sick. So Zocdoc, if you don't know, Zocdoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, eye care to skincare, and much more. Plus, Zocdoc appointments happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. I've used this. My wife has used this. We have that, miniature human running around, and I'm sure we're going to use it on them too. But it has been so helpful, especially like as a type 1 diabetic and I'm trying to find like a specialty doctor for something and I never know, do they take the insurance? Do they not take the insurance? You get there and then you find out it's the opposite of whatever you thought it was. It's a pain in the butt. But Zocdoc handles all that stuff for you. Plus there are reviews from real people that have went to these doctors. So you can find one that makes sense for you, that does what you want, that is going to match your personality even. There is so much that you can sort through in finding a doctor, and they even support telehealth appointments, so you could just book it online and do it remote from your home, so you don't even have to go into the doctor. Of course, it depends on what is going on with you, but it is a possibility. So I've used this before. If you want to try it, I absolutely would encourage you to. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to Zocdoc.com/HKI to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That is Zocdoc.com/HKI, Zocdoc.com/HKI. It's always such a mouthful, but I did it. I did it without stuttering through it. Well, we talked last week about what happened in Nanoleaf Live. Why don't you give us a recap? And let's talk about some of this stuff. I'm really excited about both blocks and the Sense Plus Switch. So, give us the highlight and then let's talk about these things.
Yeah, well, I think, every year we try and have a live event to showcase some of our new products. This year, the flagship products was blocks, Sense Plus, permanent outdoor lights, orchestrator, and scenescapes. So blocks, for those of you guys watching, sorry, I'm going to move around my camera right here. The live event was actually shot in my basement, so you'll notice it actually made my basement look really cool, and it also
It's a
forced me to clean
business
my
expense,
basement.
guys. We have to outfit my basement.
Hey,
We're going to have to finish those walls. We're going to need better looking floors.
actually, it was in like talking to some of our influencers. I actually there's a guy that actually lives like about 10 minutes away from me. He runs Instagram called like Game Room Theaters, and his basement is just amazing. And then after seeing that, I'm like, you know what? I have all the product to do this. I gotta do it. So we use lines to deck things out. I have my bar, which I don't get to use anymore. I don't really drink much, but there's the panels over there. I have my 4D product, so it's like, and then all of these downlights are Nanoleaf downlights on thread. So it's yeah, we shot in our basement. We launched blocks, which is it's kind of our first foray into like a functional wall product. It includes pegboards as well as little shelving units, right? So the usually my headphone sits here, but right now I have a little teddy bear hanging out over there. But the pegboard is really cool. I think if you look at some of the trends on like how people are actually creating their desk setups, a lot of people are buying those IKEA pegboards. And so we thought, how could we actually elevate that and make it something really cool? And so blocks was kind of our way of getting in there. Sense Plus, it's our, it's our wireless sensor plus switch combo. So it includes motion sensors, brightness sensors, as well as wireless controls for your Nanoleaf products. Well, we didn't want it to just control Nanoleaf products, so we could actually program it to control any Matter product. The challenge with the Matter products is it will operate through Thread, and until Thread 1.4 is ready on this button, the battery life will be significantly reduced. So we're releasing Matter support on like early access beta. But for Nanoleaf products, it's going to be using a proprietary communication protocol called Lightwave. Now, it uses the same radio as Thread, so it works simultaneously with Thread, but it's much quicker, much more lightweight, and the reliability is much better. Yeah.
That is really quick. If anyone's watching the video of this, he is holding the button and like controlling all those ceiling downlights, which also notably are being controlled like together, like not like
There's no popcorn effect.
Yeah, exactly. They are all happening simultaneously, up, down, on, and off. It is very smooth and very impressive.
And this is exactly what we wanted full control over, right? If we did it through Thread, then we would have to go through the border router or the Matter controller, right? And sometimes we can't control what the Matter controller does. If it decides to say, hey, you got 12 downlights, I'm going to put in serial, like each one of those messages, you're going to see lights all popcorning off. And it sends 12 commands instead of one multicast command to turn off all lights at the same time. But like, it doesn't look good. You know, when you turn on and off lights, you want it to work instantaneously. You want it to feel like it's like one. You know, you want it to feel like it's wired. Sorry, that's probably the better way of putting it. And so a lot of times, like, you know, like people would ask, why are you creating yet another protocol to support this? Well, we wanted to make sure that it worked like this, at least for our products. I'm not saying we won't support lights from other brands. You could do that through Matter, and you will get, you know, whatever that platform allows you to do. But at least we get to control our experience end to end. Yeah.
Okay, so here's my question for you. Okay, and on how this would end up working, and how like actual lights would be controlled. So I've got, say we have my basement, and I've got the skylight, Nanoleaf skylight lights in our like biggest living space. The next larger portion of it has several Nanoleaf down lights, can lights, whatever going on. And then I have, say, 3 or 4 other lights that, you know, that work with Matter. Philips Hue, LIfX, whoever, Matter enabled lights. When I use that dimmer, will it control the Nanoleaf lights like instantaneously like that, and then also send out a simultaneous command to the Matter ones? Or does it push everything over to Matter in that situation?
No. The Nanoleaf products would be controlled using our proprietary way, which is Lightwave, so it'll be pretty much instantaneous. Then we will, in parallel, send a Matter command via Thread to whatever Matter controller you use. And depending on, you know, how they process all
Sure.
of that, you will see, like, the end effect is going to be the same. You're going to, you know, the lights will turn on or off. But with Matter, you know, it's interesting because it's not just about controlling lights. It's a programmable button. So you could actually program it to like close your blinds, right? So right now within our own development, we've kind of exposed these 2 buttons. So you could actually press one of these buttons, send a Matter command, and it could do anything that your platform allows you to. I believe the only 2 platforms that support it right now are the Samsung SmartThings platform as well as Apple Home. So I think some of the other platforms are yet to catch up a little bit. And then, you know, the user experience around that is still, it needs to be worked on by these platforms, right? How do you have one device with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 programmable buttons? Each of these buttons you could do a single press, double press, long press, but really all you want it to do is map on and off for a group of lights. But really, most of the times it's like scene selectors or, you know, like it's.
I mean, with Apple Home, like there's no like toggle option of like on and off. You have to set up a conditional to check the status of your light. Is it on? If it's on, then turn it off. If it's off, then turn it on. And it's not easy.
Yeah. So as much as like, you know, like in theory, oh, we should just be able to do everything over Matter. but we'll be stuck within the constraints of Matter. And then when the user actually uses it, they're going to be like, well, this isn't how I imagined using this. But like when we create something proprietary, we have that. You know, you could push and hold to like brighten it up, push and hold to dim down to the lowest brightness, and it's all instantaneous and super low power, battery powered, right? And you know, we have a little wall plate that goes with it, and on top of that, we have a motion sensor that goes with it. So now, you know, Matter doesn't support a button slash motion sensor. Like you could have a motion sensor and you could have that motion sensor do a whole bunch of things within Matter, or you could have a programmable button, but a button sensor, right? Like, you know, that's kind of original to us. Like, so how do we actually imagine that experience? So you were saying you have all these different devices. Well, in theory, all of your Nanoleaf devices, as soon as you walk in the door, you don't even have to press the button. It'll just turn on, and you leave the room, and you could preset a kind of a timeout for these products. But from there, like in theory, it's a button that you don't need to press. You probably still will want to customize it, but like, yeah.
I'm very excited to see this finally coming out because I remember seeing, I don't remember how many years ago it was, but the full
It
demo
was
you
like
had, like the
5 years ago.
tunnel and everything that was on the show floor at CES, and it was super cool. And I think that was the first time you were talking about the switches. And
Well, I believed in it for so long, and it's to some degree embarrassing that it's taken us this long to create, but it was because we wanted to make sure that it was open and interoperable. And this goes back to what I was saying about how, you know, like how many times did we have to really recreate how we work with lights? So we thought, oh, okay, if we make a HomeKit light and it's already over Thread, then we're kind of done, right? Thread was a great technology. It's IP based. But then all of a sudden Matter came along. Okay, now we need to support Matter, and there's all these hoops that we have to jump through, all these architecture changes that each platform is creating. And then before you knew it, the solution just, you know, we probably showed you a version of this button at CES earlier this year, but when you turned off the lights, it was a popcorn effect. And then once in a while, I remember during CES one time I couldn't get it to work properly. I had to power cycle the voice assistant. Now that is not intuitive at all. Right? Like, and that's not on us.
yeah,
You know, a lot of customers will say, like, "Hey, your light didn't turn off when it was supposed to." Oh, restart your voice assistant. Which one? Well, turn them all off and turn them all back on, and then you'll see it wasn't our light bulb that had the problem. It was your voice assistant.
yeah, or it's like your Apple TV. That's actually your home hub. It's like, wait, why is my Apple TV doing my
What is my
lights? Like,
exactly? It's so
yeah.
not intuitive for customers, and we are typically at the butt end of that because you know. Anyways, yeah.
Well, let's do. I had a couple of quick questions here that some people wrote in. So, first one is a Nanoleaf one. Um, First off, they want to know: are you looking at any support options for the phone, or are you sticking with email? It's a very specific question here. But Tom would love to have phone support.
You know, we sometimes do phone support. I think the challenge is when do we offer it, and like in what circumstance. So a lot of the times, if you're really stuck, um, try and do an escalation. The challenge with supporting smart home products is that you know the knowledge bar is very high, right? And you know, because you and I both know, like when sometimes when you run into some of these smart home issues, the troubleshooting steps is not always super intuitive. So in order to support, let's say, a simple light bulb, you have to know how the Apple Home platform works. You have to know how the Google Home network works. You have to know how Alexa works, Samsung Smart Things. And then on top of that, you have to know when a lot of these products or devices or brands are all together, how does that work? And then you have to understand, well, what is Thread versus Wi-Fi versus Bluetooth, versus and when it comes to pairing, how do you pair from like, oh, I already paired it with Apple Home. Now my QR code doesn't work for Google Home. These are not super intuitive things that have been kind of the result of the industry, like creating these like standards in this spaghetti way. But I think ultimately, like you know, if you're running into a problem, you could create a support ticket. I think we've been trying to make a lot of improvements to how we do support. And I think phone support is something that we definitely try to offer for some of our extreme cases. If somebody has like an extreme case where we just can't solve it through our ticketing desk, but I think it's definitely something I'd love to support it. It's just I've done it before personally, and sometimes it takes hours, and a lot of the times the issue is with the platforms.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
there's a lot of situations. Like I know I had issues with my Ecobee, which wasn't even Ecobee related. It was like my HVAC or something, and it was like 2 hours on the phone with them, walking me through all these things, which I'm sure was not like your typical support desk person going through all that stuff, because there was a lot, and we're getting into
it's a
like
lot.
electrical stuff basically to make this happen. And yeah,
I I
phone
I
support can be
think
tough.
Ecobee is Toronto based. We're Toronto based, and so we know like their support team. They had probably 20, 30 people just sitting in a room, just providing technical support for people. And it's challenging. Support is definitely a big challenge for a smart home because like when you look at a smart home product versus a dumb product, if a light bulb, like a non-smart light bulb, if it turns on and is bright enough, 5 stars. But if you have a Nanoleaf light bulb and it works with the Nanoleaf app, it works with Apple Home, but you can't get it to pair with smart things, and your integration just automation just doesn't work sometimes. 1 star. It's a challenge. But don't get me wrong. I think we need to make products and technology that is simpler, that just work. And I think one of the things that like I've been working with my team on is like how do we actually simplify this technology so that we don't overpromise and underdeliver. And I think that this button is an example of that. If we made it a matter, like just matter support, I have a feeling we would have underdelivered. Let's actually make it proprietary so that it's just simple and it just works every single time, because you can't have a light switch not turn on your lights.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, one more question we had on Nanoleaf was, with the new Sense switch, are you able to set it up so it turns the lights on via motion, but not turn off when there's no motion? They would rather manually turn them off, and also in the setup, uh, have it not be able to see me. I'm a little bit confused at the end of this, but basically, can it just do like half that? Turn on when you walk into a room, but not turn off automatically when you leave?
I think that that's a good point. I haven't really thought of that. The use case that we were always thinking about is actually having multiples of these. So I have one by my door. I walk in, and then I have another one on my desk. And honestly, I just fiddle with it all day long. Um, but I think that use case is pretty easy. The way we do it right now is we actually allow a configurable kind of timeout for the lights. So you could say, oh, if you don't detect motion in 20 minutes, like if it's a hallway, it's nice and easy. You turn on the lights, and 20 minutes later, it doesn't see movement, then it'll just turn off. But I think I think right now the limit is either 3 hours or 8 hours. We could just make it so that it doesn't turn off. That is like a 1 hour of dev time for our team. So I think I'll take this one back, and I'll make sure we add that in there. But yeah, that's an easy one. And thanks for the feedback. Your audience is great. I love it. Keep it coming.
Nice. Yeah, so I also want to touch on the permanent outdoor lights, because you and I talked about this when we were at CES again, and I was curious on if you wanted to shed a little bit of light onto it with everyone as we're on the podcast. But when I installed the permanent outdoor lights that I have, they're great around the holidays, fantastic. But what do you do with them? How do you add value like the rest of the year? Like some people don't like, you don't want your house to be looking like you have Christmas lights up the rest of the year, but they're not a super cheap installation, and they're meant to be left up year round. I know we've talked about like security options, like, okay, you detect motion or doorbell, turn on the lights, but how are you helping people like kind of come up with ideas to program their lights or do something with them that don't look necessarily festive, but still add value to this product?
I think it's just setting the lights to warm white.
Just warm white.
Warm white.
That's
Keep
kind
it
of what
simple.
we stick
Because
with ours.
It's true, right? Sometimes you just need something simple, right? Like it's for illumination and like I remember there's I think I was speaking to someone about security, and one of the biggest deterrents for like people to break-ins and stuff like that is actually lighting. So if you have a very well lit home, people don't actually want to break in. So you don't need anything too flashy. I think the flashy is nice for holiday seasons.
In football
Um,
season.
and football season, sports, like it's fun. One of the things that we really want to do is basically automatically scheduling in all of the festive dates beforehand. And that way, as soon as you set up the product, St. Patrick's Day, you've got your colors. Independence Day, right?
That's a
Pride
really cool
Day.
idea. I love that.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it's just it's there's much more there's stuff like you don't want to have to program it. If you have to program it,
Exactly.
then it's too much of a pain in the butt. But like we within our app, we have a feature called like magic word. So like we could just say pride, give them pride on pride, give them and if you like your religious holidays, you could get that too, right? And you could just you could add in your birthday, have like a little birthday effect. But that would be something that's kind of cool. But on every other day, just set it to warm white. I think that's the only thing that doesn't look super flashy, which is basically what you're asking for. And that's why you do it.
Yeah, well, we keep ours basically at warm white, and I'm like, is there anything else that we could do with these? And it gets complicated, like you say, to try to deal with some of the programming. It's not like it's hard, but
It's
I
just
don't want
people don't want to do
to.
it.
Exactly, I don't want to have to go into there and dial in all these things and create these scenes, let alone trying to move them over into Apple Home or another system as that automated scene and everything. It gets to be a lot. But
Yeah.
I do think warm white is kind of how we have kept ours. I should set up an automation that increases the brightness, because they're in front of windows and at full brightness they're a little bright. So I should set up an automation when there's motion at night or something, kick them up to 100.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. When we were thinking about like the user experience for our button, one of the biggest benefits that people are looking for is I just don't want to program anything. Right. So like the motion, it
Yeah.
should just work. It just turns on and turns off without motion. We should pair it at the factory. So our plan is to actually have bundles where you have a light bulb and a Sense Plus switch to go with it. And then right out of the box, you don't even have to pair it. It'll just work. And then you have colors, you have scenes, that kind of thing. So yeah,
Nice.
people are lazy. It's not just you.
Lazy or busy? Can I say I'm busy? Does that sound better?
I think I personally am lazy. I don't want to be doing anything, right? Like my ideal life, and don't get me wrong, like it sounds kind of bad, but it's like lazy engineering is usually good, right? Like you want to find easier ways to do things. You don't want to have to go through the cumbersome steps. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't mean it as an insult. Or maybe I'm just trying to justify why I find myself
Could be
lazy.
a little both. Could be a little bit of both. Okay. And anything else that you want to touch on today?
I think the coolest thing is that we released was Orchestrator. So if you haven't tried it already, it's available on our PC app as well as our Mac OS app. And basically, it captures the audio that you're playing on your computer, and it does this really cool light show on all of your lights, all of your Nanoleaf lights. And I think that it actually elevates all of the existing products that we have, as well as our future products. And so far from what I've seen, like the people that have used it, they've loved it. And this was kind of a personal passion project of mine. Um, I don't know if you used WinApp back in the day, but they had these like WinApp
Mm-hmm.
visualizers.
Oh
They
yeah.
had a whole library of like hundreds of user created like visualizers, and we wanted to create something like that. And again, we wanted the user experience to be super simple. So all you have to do is click on for Orchestrator, and then all of a sudden your lights just start reacting to the music from any audio source. So you could be watching YouTube music, you could be watching, like you could be listening to Apple Music or Spotify, and as the song changes, it'll actually change the different visual effects that you get. And I think that's actually the most that's kind of the coolest thing from our live event.
I do remember seeing a demo of that. and it was very neat. I know I don't listen to we listen to
You
a
don't
lot
listen
of
to music?
music. We do, like, especially my son. He loves music. He loses his mind on music. By the time everyone's listening to this, like we got back from a Billy Joel concert, who's coming to Cleveland. We definitely listen to music, but I never listen to like on like speakers necessarily. Like my son watches music videos. Like we'll turn on a lot of music videos, but I don't ever necessarily like sync the lights with them. I guess it's maybe because we don't have a lot of like colored lights in like our living spaces, really. Like I have in like our dining rooms and our bar and in the kitchen, but like our living room is so open and we have no ceiling lights really. We've got like 3 can lights is like basically all we've got in there, and then just big open windows. So we don't ever have like we don't have a good space to put up a bunch of cool lights in the room and then sync them with the music. So I guess maybe it's because I don't have a good spot for it yet.
Well, I think it's definitely for the music lovers, right? So I don't know if you see in my background, I got a piano, I got a guitar. Like in between meetings, I go and like goof around on music. I'm not that great of a musician, but I do enjoy it and I have a passion for it. And I think that like the lights really add to the music, right? There's a reason why any concert that you go to, it'll typically have a light show. And there's like I didn't realize this before, but like there's literally a light DJ that, you know how DJs like kind of mix all the music and all the sound in a nightclub or whatever. In a lighting concert, in a concert, there's a light DJ that's actually pounding different buttons that has different macros for all the lights within a concert so that everything goes to the beat. And to be able to create that effect in a home setting using consumer products like smart lights that work over Matter and all that stuff, it's really, really cool for the music lovers out there. So that's I would say it's kind of a, we're not trying to replicate like a nightclub within your house. We're actually just trying to enhance your music listening experience. But you know, that's me. I listen to music pretty much like whenever I'm not talking to someone else, whenever I'm by myself, like I'm always listening to music. So and it's all kinds of music. Like, you know, like I don't have a specific genre. I love pretty much all music. Except for
I
some of
do
the
think
heavy
it's
metal,
cool.
it's a little it's
Yeah.
a little much.
Yeah.
The
We do a lot
screamo
of
stuff is
classic rock around here for sure. Harrison
yeah.
loves Beatles, and you've been listening to a lot of Elvis lately. He's a big fan of those. He
I love the Elvis
just
movie. The
immediately
Elvis
stops and
music
starts
was
dancing.
awesome. Yeah, after the Elvis movie, like I listened to nonstop Elvis for like I think that year. Like Elvis was my top listened to artist for on Spotify.
Nice, nice. Awesome. Well, okay. Thank you so much for joining. We have all of Nanoleaf stuff, of course, is linked in the show notes. If you guys want to learn more about blocks, you want to learn more about the Sense Plus switch, you want to learn more about the permanent outdoor lights, those are up for pre-order, right? Is that what those were? Those are up for pre-order
Yeah,
now? Okay,
that's
perfect.
correct.
So pre-order link will be down there. And then Orchestrator is found in the Mac and Windows apps. If you already have those, you can download those, but I can try to put a link for that download too in the show notes. Anything else you want to plug?
No, that's about it. I think for the pre-orders, there's a special pre-order discount on there. But yeah, thanks a lot for having me on the show. I think it was great chatting with you as always. Yeah,
The timing worked out so well between your live event, the Apple event, so much fun stuff going on. We just passed IFA. I guess I'll see you in a few months.
sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks again, Jimmy. Everybody, do what you guys do best. Give this podcast 5, 10, 100-star rating on your podcast player of choice. Watch the video version of this over youtube.com/HomeKit Insider. You can see all the lights reacting to that Sense Plus switch in like real time, which is super cool. You guys can go do that. Otherwise, we'll catch you in the next episode.